Prime Minister, first can we ask you about this Westminster accounts tool that we've launched? Do you think there's enough transparency generally when it comes to money that MPs get from different sources? And is it right that companies that don't seem to exist can donate six-figure sums to MPs?
I think transparency is really important for the healthy functioning of democracy. It's absolutely right that there's disclosures around donations and outside interests, and transparency is a good thing, and I fully support it.
Is it right that six-figure sums are being given to MPs?
I think transparency is really important, and that's why we have a set of rules and regulations in place to provide that transparency for people, and it's important that those rules are adhered to.
OK, let's talk about plans to buy care beds, the announcement today. You knew this was going to be a difficult winter. That's no surprise. Why wasn't this done sooner?
Well, actually, months ago, the government announced £500 million in extra funding to speed up the discharge of people from hospitals into their communities or back home where that makes sense. Today's announcement is even more funding to help support those initiatives. I'm fortunate to be visiting one of those places today, which is doing a particularly good job in treating people closer to their homes. You know, that's the right thing to do, because what it means is it frees up pressure in our hospitals. That will ease some of the burdens that we're seeing in emergency departments and ambulance waiting times, and it's also better for people to be treated at home where they can be or closer to their home. It's part of our plans to drive down waiting times in the NHS, improve the experience that patients are getting, and it's great to meet teams of clinicians today who are doing a really good job of that. What I want to see is to spread that best practice out across the country. OK,
let's talk about strikes. It sounds like a one-off payment is on the table. Will that be just for nurses?
Well, I'm really pleased that union leaders accepted ministers' invitations to come in today to have discussions across the board, and that's a really positive development. And on pay, we've always said that the government is happy to talk about pay demands and pay issues that are anchored in what's reasonable, what's responsible, what's affordable for the country. But the most important thing is those talks are happening, and let's try and sit down and find a way through.
So to confirm, a one-off payment is on the table?
You wouldn't expect me to comment on specifics, but the most important thing is that the conversations are happening, that people are talking, and with regard to pay, we have to have those conversations based on what is affordable, what's reasonable, what's responsible for the country. But look, people need to get talking, that's what they're doing, and hopefully we can find a way through this.
Okay, I understand you don't have the negotiations here, but I think people do just want clarity, and there was confusion yesterday about whether you said you were willing to talk about pay for 2022-23 or for the next year. Can you just confirm what exactly you meant yesterday?
I think people want clarity that the government is sitting down and engaging with union leaders. That's the right thing to do, and that's why we reiterated that last week by inviting union leaders in for talks. I'm glad those invitations were accepted, and those talks are now happening, and people can be reassured that dialogue is happening. And I think people also recognise that when it comes to pay, we do need to be talking about things that are affordable ultimately for the country, that are responsible when it comes to tackling inflation, which ultimately is the root cause of the challenges people are seeing. That's what's driving up the cost of living. We all want to root out inflation. It's really important that we do so. But look, the talks are happening. That's a good positive sign, and the most important thing is we let those talks carry on.
And last question very quickly, do you accept that today, as the unions say, you won't be able to avert the nurses' strikes next week in 45 minutes? Do you accept that today isn't going to be the moment that happens?
I think it's important that the talks are happening, and I've always said that the government's door is open to have talks with union leaders based on what's affordable, what's responsible, what's reasonable. It's a good thing that those talks are happening. But look, what the government is getting on with is delivering on the people's priorities. I set out 5 priorities, 5 promises I wanted to make to the country, and that's to halve inflation, grow the economy, reduce debt, reduce waiting lists, and stop the boats. That's squarely what everyone in government is focused on delivering for the country. I think that's the country's priorities. Today's visit here is about improving the performance in the NHS, and I'm keen to see progress on all those fronts this year.